Welcome to the channel for the first time viewers. Welcome back from my existing subscribers. The launch of the RTX 4000 series kicked off with a strong start back in October 12, 2022, featuring the RTX 4090, and then it was shortly followed by the RTX 4080. So they've since dropped off a cliff for a multitude of reasons, but through this video, I'd like to share my take on this entire GPU market, really focusing on the NVIDIA side of things and a little bit here and there of the AMD side of things. So when the RTX 4090 was first announced, everybody was kind of skeptical of the performance that was shown because NVIDIA was claiming up to 4 times the performance when it came to the RTX 4000 series, really the 4090 when they released it. So anyone with a brain or any kind of PC gaming or parts experience knew that this was either going to be a quantum leap in technology or just a straight out, flat out lie. The truth was somewhere in the middle. You know, I was kind of shocked that the RTX 4090 hit the rasterization and the ray tracing performance that it did, as well as it did, especially given the fact that they were really focused on DLSS 3.0, and that was kind of like the big features that they were pushing, and that's all you ever heard about. But the rasterization was up to like 80% better in certain cases, right? So that 400%, it just sounds crazy, but it's really using that new feature that I just mentioned, which was DLSS 3.0 frame generation. So around that launch, you couldn't watch any kind of content around the RTX 4090 without seeing DLSS and Spider-Man and frame generation from Daniel Owen to Digital Foundry. It seemed like everybody was throwing their 2 cents in the arena to kind of give their perspective or their opinion on DLSS 3.0 frame gen, right? So that was, again, one of the big pieces that was part of that marketing campaign. Now, this is going to be pretty cool. For those of you also in the tech segment, just kind of figure things out. This next section was kind of helped along by ChatGPT. So I went in just from ChatGPT, just trying to see how accurate it was, and it was pretty accurate. So I'm going to go ahead and share why the RTX 4000 series has been in some sort of decline. So number one, it costs an arm and a leg, right? So the RTX 4000 series cards were priced higher than a unicorn's horn dipped in gold. They were expensive, right? So people had to skip meals and skip their, sell their firstborns to afford one of these cards, and it's a little bit of an exaggeration because it was only a couple $100 more. Actually, I think it was $100 more for the top tier from 3090 to 4090, but everything else saw a tremendous jump, right? Reason number two that the 4000 series has just not really panned out the way I feel that NVIDIA thought that they could have panned out. And it's because of that semiconductor shortage. So that was still, during the production of these cards, something that was relevant. It's been alleviated significantly since back when we were in 2020 and these major factories, these foundries were shut down, but it still isn't 100% resolved. So you had RTX 3000 that was still in production because all these card companies, EVGA specifically, which is why they stopped doing business with NVIDIA, it's just the practice of not really knowing how much you're going to make on a card, but just having to fulfill an order of like 80,000, right? And then hope that you make money off of it because they price it correctly. So that was one of the reasons that Gamers Nexus had explained, that, okay, this is why you want to make sure that you go ahead and, oh no, not that part, but this is why that they wanted to stop doing business with NVIDIA, because they wanted to pretty much be in control of their profits, right? So the last piece is that there's really nothing to demand that you go get a 4090. Are some of these newer games starting to challenge it? Yes. But at the time, they're talking about last fall, there was nothing that was out that was really like, if you don't have a 4090, you can't play it, right? You might not be able to get 200 FPS or 150 FPS or be at 4K, but everything that was out at the time for the 3090 Ti and everything that existed was still enough. So that's why you saw the used market really have a uptick, because everybody was like, hey, I can go ahead and just rock this 3090 Ti that I got for $1,000. Or if you got a really good deal when everybody was really trying to get into the 4000 series and it was hot, you could get 3090s for as low as $750, $700 on eBay. It's since started to creep back up because the value is starting to level out and it's essentially settling in at where the 30 or the 4070 Ti is, right? But those are still great cards with 24 gigs of VRAM. And although you're not getting the newest features, solid choice. So that also led to some of the decline in sales after the initial rush, because every launch since has been worse, right? So you started off with the 4090, sold out within the first hour. 4080 didn't really sell out till later in the day. Most of the cards that people wanted were gone though. And then 4070 Ti didn't sell out at all. 4070, I don't know anyone that has one other than like a couple of benchmark channels. And the performance just was not there. So it just, to me, I just picked up a 3080 on eBay just to have another last gen card. So I flipped my 3070 Ti into this EVGA 4080. Hopefully it works when it gets here, but we'll see. But I just can't see myself going and getting a 4070, although it would be cool for the content. I don't know. It's just such a bad. It's an okay price when you put it into perspective with the other cards that are out. But this 3080 at times performs just as good, right? It's not gonna have all the new features, just like I mentioned with the 3080 and the 3090 before. It's not gonna have the DLSS 3.0, but at the same time, I think it'll be fine, right? And it was $400, so you can't sleep on that. That's a good value if you ask me. Versus $600 for equal performance and a few more features, maybe, right? So if a game doesn't implement it, then you don't get that extra feature. If they do implement it, then you do, and it's great. So let's talk about the last little piece, and I feel like this is also one of the reasons why this series just really isn't living up to not necessarily the hype, but the expectations. So, while the 4000 series is a group of powerful cards, great hardware, there's certain type of users that just don't really benefit from it. So kind of the examples I gave you earlier, if you're a casual gamer, you just play games for fun, it's your hobby, you probably don't need an RTX 4000 series. You'll be perfectly fine at 60 to 90 to 144 FPS in a game like Warzone, and you can save yourself a lot of money. And it's just not one of those things that it's going to make you run out and get it. I mean, I know folks that are still rocking the 1080 Ti, and I've been kicking around picking up one of those on Marketplace because they're so cheap right now. I'm still stuck in the days where it was like a premium card, but right now you can get it for like $200. Some of the used ones because they're old now. But yeah, so for those casual gamers that don't really care about ray tracing, they're not going to use those features, or they're playing games like Siege and older games from like 2016, 2017, games like Valorant. Those people are not in the market for 4000 series cards unless they have like some crazy monitor that they're trying to push, or they just want to build something all new with new parts at that time, right? So no different than somebody buying a 1070 when it was the most current card at that time. So budget conscious customers, right up there with the casual gamers. If somebody's looking to save money, there's so many choices of great cards, and this is where you can look at some of the AMD choices. So the 6800 XT is on crazy sale. The 6800 is like $500. The 6800 XT is like, I think, like $520. Shit, the 6950 XT, which I personally feel was the best card from that last generation, as far as my experiences, is currently $600, and you can get some for like $599, $580. So it's kind of crazy to see that card go from $1,100 to $580, and then still be competitive enough to consider when you're looking at the 7900 XT. And even that card's taking a dump, right? No one bought that card from the jump as well. So everybody bought the XTX, or they just waited. A few people settled, but with the AMD side on the 7900 XT, you have a lot of people that just pretty much went ahead and they just let that card go by the wayside. So now you can get those things for under $800. So I think a good price for those would be $700. So once it gets to $700, I think you'll start to see that become a prominent card in a lot of people's builds, right? So in all, if you're a budget gamer, or if you're a budget cautious gamer, or you're a casual gamer, 4000 series just ain't for you, right? At least so far. And even the cheaper ones, they're being aligned with cards that already exist performance wise, unless you start using some of the new features. But if you don't, it doesn't make sense, right? I feel like it's the iPhone 13 Pro versus the iPhone 14 Pro. Like, if you're not, there's really nothing in there. And if you're not going to use all of the new features, there was no reason for an upgrade. And the last person is going to be somebody that does light workloads. So really, this is my category, but I really love the tech, so I kind of step outside of that zone. But lighter workloads, just a little bit of video editing, nothing crazy. You know, student professionals, people like that. If you're just working on, again, pictures, videos, and it's not like these crazy edits like my videos. Shoot, I mean, I was able to process them on an RX 580. It took a little bit, but it worked, right? So if you're like that, everything since then is a good fit, right? Some will be better because they'll have faster render times. Some will be better because it has more video memory. So if you did want to step in and start doing more, you could do that. But for lighter workloads, again, something that you could do on a really, really good laptop would be a breeze on any one of these graphics cards. So in all, I think that is why the RTX 4000 series is just not doing as well as it could, right? And that 12 gigabytes of VRAM, which is like a little bonus piece here, it just isn't enough. And you have some games that are already crashing into that 12 gigabyte buffer. That would be maybe the only saving grace, though, is that most of these other competitive cards that I talked about, FPS-wise, when you look at a Hogwarts Legacy, you look at a Jedi Survivor, you look at a Last of Us, they have like 8 gigabytes of VRAM, so they're screwed from the jump, right? Now, the 3060 is kind of slow. So it'll be enough for most people, but it's still kind of slow, and it does have 12 gigs. But you can get those for like 280. So again, it comes back kind of full circle. Do you want those new features or not? And I think a lot more people are saying that they don't, because the performance isn't that much better to justify the newer price tag that is almost double, right? In some cases. So again, hopefully this was an insightful video. Not really supposed to be like an educational one. It's just more some of what I thought. And again, it's just not looking that good. Any graphics card that you're looking to get right now, or if you're in the market for a graphics card, if money is not an issue, I would say it's actually the 4090. Somebody gave me some flack in the comments for saying, for recommending the 4090. But in my opinion, if I'm spending $1,000, I'm not getting, the Radeon drivers are a problem for me. So that's a waste of money. Not for everybody, for me. 4080, it's so close to the price of the 4090 at this point in USD. So you're spending, I don't know, probably $1,380, $1,390 after tax. And you could spend like $1,750, $1,700, but have significantly more performance, right? So you could be having what the 5080 performance could be, or the 5070. And that's another piece that when I was kind of putting this script together, I thought about back in the day was when you got a card like the 1080 Ti, right? The new generation cards came out, it was still relevant, it was still hitting the bricks, it was doing its thing, right? 2080 Ti, it's still relevant today. It's like a 3060 Ti, but it's still relevant. It's playing all the games. It has more VRAM. It has 11 gigs of VRAM, so it's not running into some of the issues that some of these other cards had. And again, there's just so many choices that you really just, if you know the parts, or even if you don't know the parts, you can just put your CPU and that GPU together into YouTube and see what benchmarks pop up, right? Just type in like 13700K and RTX 2080 Ti and see what the performance could be for you. But yeah, I'll cut it here. To each his own. If money's not a thing, I would definitely say 4090 and just call it a day. It's the best you could buy. Drivers have been fairly stable, especially after just the debauchery that was the launch driver. So this was looking real bad when it comes to Warzone, at least. Nothing that caused system hangs, but a lot of game crashes. But that seems to have been remedied, and the last couple drivers have been no issues for me. So I'll catch y'all on the flip. Be easy.